Welcome to the Sports Curious podcast. Today is Wednesday, and we are here for our Wednesday Wisdom edition of the podcast. Now, we don't just talk sports, we cover sports how you want to talk about sports. And why? Because sports is the ultimate conversation starter. It's a way to kick off a relationship. You don't need to be an ESPN sideline reporter to be able to have the conversation around the world of sports. It's just one more tool in your tool belt for success. And that's what we do here on this podcast. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Friday that are very short podcasts to get you set up for the week and send you off into the weekend. And of course, on Wednesdays, we dive in a little bit further into a topic. And today we are going to talk about the impact of women's sports, the impact of Caitlin Clark. You're talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. I'm at dinner parties. I'm at events. I have talked to more people about women's sports in the past week than I probably have in my entire career. So with that, I'm going to bring in my co-host, my brother, my co-founder, who is a phenomenal human, huge Aces fan. So you need to know that up front that he is definitely biased, but huge Aces fan. So Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here to talk about the rise of women's sports that we've been discussing for seems like a while now. And yes, this is an extremely biased Las Vegas Aces podcast.
And so we talked about this, and it was really interesting. I actually was chatting with someone yesterday, and they were saying they were at a dinner party, and typically at a party, right, the men and the women talk about something completely different. She said, I started listening around the table, and everyone was talking about women's March Madness. Everyone was talking about women's sports. No matter what gender you were talking about women's sports. And that's when you know something has completely leapt to the top of the conversation pool, right? And that's why we decided to cover this in this week's podcast. We would typically talk about Earth Day. We're right around Earth Day and teams doing phenomenal work. But this to me was so relevant. And you and I had this conversation that it really made sense to talk about this day because it's soaring. And people are seeing that, wow, we could make money off of this. If you're a network, if you're the NCAA. 3 years ago, women were not allowed to, was the first time women were allowed to use March Madness. If you remember 4 years ago, they had this really, really sad post that just caused so much outrage of the women's workout facility during March Madness and the men's. The men's look like something out of some professional athletes, professional sports teams gym. And the women's look like a sad, sad Motel 6 if they had gym. It was awful. And so we've soared from there. So talk to me, just talk to me about your thoughts.
It's truly been just a remarkable rise, like you said, in the past 3 to 4 years, not just with March Madness, but with WNBA, with NWSL. There's so many different opportunities. And it's been like, if you build it, they will come. It's kind of the phrase I've been thinking about for a long time. These women have been playing incredibly well, incredibly talented, but they've just had this opportunity now to actually be seen. And it's easier to watch games now more than ever. And that's just showing that people will watch if it's on TV, if they can actually find where the games are.
Well, and that's, I think, the thing that makes March Madness so relevant and such a big conductor to this conversation is because that is everywhere, right? That is such a huge tournament with a huge name, with already all that. And the storylines on these women that the networks can create are so much more significant. And so I really think that is a huge piece of it too, right? You can tell this story so well. Now, are you a believer? I mean, you watch way more sports than I do. But the conversation is, if you want to watch the purest form of a sport, watching women's sports is that. It's the skill set. It's not just overpowering. It's not just a bunch of big dudes. It's an actual skill set and an actual really like the pure form of the game. Is that something you would agree with?
I think the women's basketball game is actually a better product at this point with just skill level and actual fundamentals and playing the game the right way. I think we saw that in March Madness. All these commentators, like even like Shaq and Charles Barkley, were saying that the women's game is just so much better right now than the men's, based on the quality of product on the court. And no disrespect to the men. I mean, we saw the UConn men dominate everyone, which I think contributed to maybe not the highest ratings this year for the men, but overall, I think the women's product is better.
Well, the men's ratings were up 4%
Mhm.
this year, but for the first time ever, the women's ratings eclipsed the men's.
Yeah, I think that's a product of they're able to tell these stories. They have 3 years that they have to be in college based on the WNBA draft rules, and so that allows for us to learn about these players, to learn about their backstories, and develop kind of a bond or appreciation for what they're going through.
Now, one thing that you went to the Final Four, and one thing you text me and you said, "I cannot believe the amount of," and you know exactly what I'm gonna say, so I'm gonna let you finish it.
Do a little backstory here first.
Yes.
So I ended up on Wednesday of the women's Final Four week, which would have been a few weeks ago. I was able to get a ticket, and the only flight available out was a Thursday night red eye to Cleveland. So we booked the Thursday night red eye to Cleveland for the games on Friday. We barely got a hotel. Everything was sold out. It was crazy, and you can see the shirt here if you're watching.
If
But
you're watching on YouTube, Final Four shirt.
if you're watching on YouTube, Final Four shirt. The amount of conversations, like you said, with everyone in Cleveland, I was blown away. Uber drivers, hotel employees, people in the elevator, people in the lobby. Everyone could name multiple women's players. They knew who was playing, what teams were playing, the coaches. It was truly the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. And then in between games, I think I text you that I was blown away with the amount of parents and specifically fathers with their daughters that were at the Final Four in in South Carolina shirts or Caitlin Clark shirts. It's just remarkable that the impact that they're having that will be felt for generations. This Final Four, I think it was so historic, and that's kind of why I decided to go.
It's really cool, and I've
Mhm.
had this conversation with people, and, you know, as much as we talk about the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing, what's one more layer to this puzzle?
Mhm.
It's sort of like last summer, right? We had Taylor Swift, we had Barbie, we had Beyonce tours, right? This was a perfect culmination of girls are now watching NFL games that are
Mhm.
9, 10, 11 years old, and they're loving them. So now you have this whole generation of football fans. But once again, rising tides raise all ships, right? So that visibility comes over to Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark helps paint that visibility. We have March Madness where people are going to get excited and watch great basketball, which engages parents, but
Mhm.
also allows these girls who are playing in these sports, but just don't have anybody to emulate on that capacity, right? Caitlin Clark is the Taylor Swift of college basketball, maybe of college
Yes.
sports right now at this point. And so it's phenomenal to see this perfect storm that is really truly elevating and raising all women's sports. I mean, really truly raising awareness of all sports, but all women's sports definitely. And so I just love when you sent me that text. You're like, the amount of dads and daughters in Caitlin Clark t-shirts and jerseys at this game is
Mhm.
phenomenal. And the conversations, like you said, that they were having, smart conversations around the game.
Yeah, it was absolutely remarkable, and that's gonna be felt for generations. What we've just witnessed. So there's 3 or 4 or 5 year olds at this moment that now for life have someone to look up to or a goal to achieve.
Well, in my household, we watched mostly women's games. I think we obviously watched the men's championship, and I watched some
Mhm.
games here and there, but the little dude just wanted to know when Caitlin Clark was playing. And are we cheering for Caitlin Clark? Who was playing Caitlin Clark? And why are they going to beat her? Like, he was just not here for any of it. But
Yeah.
it was so fascinating to me that that is not something that is not something that would have happened in our household. A, those opportunities didn't exist when we were kids. But to have him say, "Is Caitlin Clark on again today? I want to watch her. I don't want to watch these guys. I want to watch Caitlin Clark." To me, it's phenomenal. Um, but speaking of Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever,
Mhm.
everyone is amped for her time in the WNBA. We'll talk a little bit about the salaries and some questions people have had around the WNBA. But let's just talk about her impact. Let's talk about this whole next class, actually, the impact of this whole next class of
Mhm.
names people know. if we were doing the NBA draft today, I would probably know no one. Maybe Zach Edey or the two, Donovan, and I'm blanking on his last name. But you know those
Cling.
names because they were in the national
Yes,
championship game.
exactly.
But I mean, talk to me about this impact, right? You're an Aces fan, so you're seeing it as from the opponent side. What's happening when Caitlin Clark is coming to your city?
It's almost like she's never played a game in the league, but she's already at like, I don't know, like the Beatles status or NSYNC or Michael Jackson with that level of hype, with people just clamoring to see her play before she's even stepped foot on the court, which is absolutely mind blowing. To be honest with you, we've got teams that are moving venues for when future games are going to happen. Like you said, I'm an avid Las Vegas Aces fan, and I've been to a ton of games. And when the schedule was first announced, the Aces play the Fever first on May 25th, which is, I think, the third or fourth game. And prices before that was announced were like $150 or so. And I should have bought those tickets when I saw that, but I looked this morning; those tickets are $650,
It's
which
incredible.
is absolutely crazy. And they can't move the May 25th game just due to other events in the city, but the July 2nd game versus the Fever and Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston was moved to T-Mobile Arena, where the Golden Knights play with capacity of about 18,000. So they've already moved venues for their second game.
It's incredible. And I love to see it. And I mean, the WNBA itself has
Mm-hmm.
been really on an upward trajectory. They've had their most watched season in 21 years. Let's see what else I'm trying to see. Their attendance went up 16%. I mean, it's an incredible season to see. The Aces, speaking of your Aces, sold out of season ticket membership for their 2024 season, making them the first team in WNBA history to sell out of their season ticket allotment. So
Mm-hmm.
the vibe and the energy around this season is incredible.
It's truly amazing to see. Kind of when the Aces first came, they weren't necessarily what they are now. So it's been incredible to see the rise of them to back-to-back champions. Now we're selling out arenas, selling out season tickets. The games are fun. I mean, it's an incredible experience.
Mom talks about how loud those games are.
They are very loud. They play a lot of music. Unfortunately, maybe not great for the older fans, but I was able to get our parents to go to a game, which is even more shocking. So at least they did go to one.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely incredible. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
WNBA they're expanding, right? They're expanding to San Francisco.
Yes, so they're currently at 12 teams this season. Then the next season they'll adopt in the San Francisco slash Golden State Warriors team that will play in the Warriors home stadium, Chase Bank
That's in,
Arena.
well, and that's the first team they've had since 2008. So they've really slow played this growth.
Yes, and I think it's strategic. It's very smart not to grow too fast and add too many
Hmm.
teams. I think it'll be perfect timing next season with, like this incoming draft class that you saw and just the overall talent that's strong these record ratings. So I think it's perfect timing. And
Well,
that San Francisco area is clamoring for basketball with the Warriors and their success in the past.
it's really interesting. So I think there's a couple. I'm not sure what angle quite to take with this yet, but it's really fascinating because there was an interview with Becky Hammon, who is the WNBA, or excuse me, the Aces head coach, and she talked about how Kobe was the initial guy to show up in the
Mhm.
WNBA sweatshirt and show up and be present. And now you're seeing all of these NBA players that are attending games, which is a huge lift for the league. But you're also seeing these big name investors, right? We've seen Tom Brady, who's come in with the Aces as a minority owner. You're seeing this Secretary Condoleezza Rice. You're seeing all of these big names come in and invest in the WNBA, which, once again, players being present, celebrities being present, and key investors with big names being present and showing up is raising that visibility.
And it took the vision of people like Kobe who saw the product and saw the talent that was upcoming to really invest in it. And he kind of was the trailblazer, and it's just taken off from there.
And I know we've talked about it in a previous podcast about athletes and their lasting impact, but
Yes.
Kobe was a mentor to so many current WNBA superstars.
And most like Sabrina Ionescu of the New York Liberty, who was one of the first women to get their own signature shoe with Nike. She was in the 3-point contest with Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wait till
yes,
Caitlin Clarkson that next year, right?
I think they'll probably team Caitlin and Sabrina versus
Sabrina.
like Steph and Clay, maybe.
That's awesome. Okay, we apparently just spent most of our time talking about basketball, but we do want to talk a little bit about, sorry, we got really excited. We do want to talk about some other professional leagues that are absolutely killing it out there, like the PWHL, which is a professional women's hockey league,
Mm-hmm.
who had their inaugural season.
They're in their inaugural season. They're in 6 cities. They've already set attendance records with, I think, 17,000 people at games. It's just going to continue to rise. It's remarkable what they've done as well within really halfway through their first season.
It's incredible. And I mean, these players are not getting paid anywhere close to what an NHL player is making, but they're making around $55,000 a season. WNBA players, they're on average right around, oh gosh, where did my numbers go? There's a couple players making 200,000 a season. But average is about 147,000 for a WNBA player. And so you're seeing these athletes who now have a place to play, maybe not getting paid what they want, but the people are, once again, build it and they will come.
Mm-hmm. And with the PWHL, I think they're already locked into like 10 years. So they have a plan to grow these salaries incrementally as the league goes on. So, I mean, 55,000 average to start, but they have this plan to where they can incrementally increase as, interest grows and as demand grows.
Yeah, speaking of a league that really demand has continued to soar, that's the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. There have been some incredible numbers, obviously ratings, attendance going up 26%. But talk to me a little bit about franchises. I think that's something really interesting to talk about when it comes to NWSL. And I would say the most popular team is the Los Angeles team, the Angels, right? Did I get that
Angel
right?
FC.
Angel
Angel
FC,
FC,
that's it.
yes.
And that's Eva Longoria with Natalie Portman. You name Jennifer Garner, you name them, celebrities, Serena Williams, Olympia Williams, her daughter, are owners of this team. That's sort of they're obviously the key team, or the what's the word I'm looking for? The famous team, I guess you should say. But
Yes.
talk to me a little bit about this league and the franchise fees, and really they're paying players great money to play in this league now.
Yeah, like I think the past 3 to 4 years, like we've seen with basketball and other sports, the NWSL has just been on a rocket ship as far as ratings and demand. And it was even before you could really even watch games easily. In the offseason, they signed a huge deal to make it easier to watch games, $240 million. So now you can see CBS, ESPN, Prime Video, Script Sports, basically anywhere where you can watch sports, you can actually see these games now. And that money is incredible with it, 240 million. And
And
with
that's
that,
allowing them to go ahead.
I was just say with that, they've been able to bring in other teams. So we've got Boston and Bay Area, which before these franchises came in, it was roughly 5 million for a new franchise. These ones went for 53 million.
It's
So
incredible.
it's remarkable what that number has become.
Mm.
And we've even seen like San Diego Wave, they just sold for 113 million.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I mean, in a short amount of time, the amount of money that's come in.
And the value as an investor, if you look at it from that perspective, investing in women, investing in women's sports is paying off.
I mean, that's where the money is. You can't necessarily buy into an NFL franchise or an
Right.
NBA franchise at this point. So for a lot lower amount of money, you can jump into an NWSL team or, PWHL team and definitely make some money and see some increase.
Yeah, and it's incredible. I mean, they have players like Sophia Smith and Mallory Swanson. you're definitely gonna recognize those names from the national women's soccer team for the World Cup and the Olympics, but they're making at or over $2 million just on salary, not including their opportunities for sponsors.
Mhm. Yeah, in the past year, we've seen actually 4 record contracts. So it's been honestly, that's incredible as well.
Absolutely. Now, last, I want to touch really quickly on the
Mhm.
Pro Volleyball Federation. This is a really cool one that snuck in there that I want to make sure we highlight before we log off for the day.
Pro Volleyball Federation, much like the hockey league, is in their inaugural season as well, and they've had incredible attendance numbers, especially in Omaha. If you've ever seen Nebraska women's volleyball,
Yeah, they fill a football
they
stadium.
get football stadiums worth of people. So it's no surprise that the Omaha Supernovas are the highest attendance in the league. They set the record at over 12,000, and that number is just going to continue to grow.
It's incredible.
And with
It's in,
the championship will be in Omaha as well. So that will obviously, I don't know what stadium they might have to play outdoors. I'm not sure what stadium will fit them.
it's pretty cool. I mean, it's here in the next couple of weeks. It's in the month of May are the semifinals, right? And so it's incredible. And as someone who's never played volleyball outside of a PE class, I did not realize, Omaha, that you showed up for
Hmm.
volleyball, and I'm here for that. They have a phenomenal football team too, but it's incredible to see. I love to see the diversity. I also love to see what this brings to different cities, right? I think in some notes that you sent me, the amount of money that the women's March Madness brought into Cleveland was insane. The amount of money that these teams that are generating for their cities. When you
Hmm.
look at Omaha or the Kansas City Current, who's an NWSL team owned by Patrick Mahomes and his wife Brittany Mahomes, it's cool to see really how this is all falling into place and how it's really driving the economy once again back to the Beyonce,
Hmm.
Barbie, Taylor Swift summer. Things are happening. They're making things happen.
Money talks, right?
That's right.
Like
Sure does. Now, is
Caitlin
there
and her.
anything?
I
Go
was just
ahead.
gonna say my last thing was gonna be that Caitlin and the Iowa University of Iowa basketball team brought in over $82 million to local economy in Iowa City.
That's incredible. And
And the
that's
women's
a
Final Four, the final numbers aren't out yet, but it's estimated at least 25 million, with
so you think
25,000 people coming into Cleveland.
so you think about that, right? When you look at Caitlin Clark, 85 million. Granted, that's a whole season, but it's spread out, right? But then you're
Hmm.
looking at, and I had someone who said, "Hey, I was thinking about bringing the flights to see Caitlin Clark play. I was going to take my daughter, and I looked at tickets, and they're $250 to
Yes.
go to a game, which is once again incredible." So I will leave you with, if you're not watching it, you're missing out. I just ordered a shirts from Together, which is Megan Rapinoe's company and a couple other athletes, I believe. Um, but they say everybody watches women's sports. And I feel that way. I feel that energy. I feel that vibe from people all over the country, all over the place that I talk to, and it's really amazing. So if you're not watching, you're missing out. This is a great opportunity to have a conversation starter. If anything, if you are not into sports, read the business pages. Check that out. Explore the business side of what's happening right now. It's absolutely incredible and absolutely the place to be. Anything else you would like to leave us with?
Tune in to the WNBA season coming up. I
There we
think
have it.
you'll be shocked,
You'll be impressed. It's a
impressed.
lot of
Yes.
fun. And stay tuned at lastnightsgame.com or follow us on social media for all things WNBA plus more. Olympics, football. Scott's going to show us your shirt again. Have a great week.